Well, I'm sure you saw the title and you clicked on it because you were a little bit confused. The title says Panorama Photography. I should have known better. And you're right, I should have known better because I have done so many tutorials on panoramic photography, the gear, how to set up your camera, everything about photographing a panorama I've covered. So you're wondering, why are you stating you should have known better? Because in reality, I should have known better. This is how I normally photograph a panorama, especially if it's on a tripod. If it's handheld, then I'm just holding my camera. But 9 times out of 10, I like shooting panoramas on a tripod. The tripod's level, I'm using my panoramic rotator, the camera is in portrait mode with my L bracket, the camera's in manual mode, the focus has been locked, the aperture's been locked. There is nothing that is going to move because everything is set to manual. When I start from the left and go to the right, or start from the right and go to the left, I'm not going to get any inconsistencies throughout my shot. Well, a few days ago, we went to Bribey Island to celebrate my 62nd birthday. We went out, had a great lunch, enjoyed the afternoon. I could see there was a bit of cloud in the sky and there was a lot of haze on the horizon. Thought, yep, this is going to be a beautiful sunset. My wife said, it's your birthday, just go out for an hour or so, have some fun, then we'll go out for dinner. So I drove along the esplanade, found a nice spot, parked the car, grabbed my new little K&F backpack, and I don't like carrying things in my backpack that I won't use. So I took out the Nikon 70-30, I took out my new Viltrox 16mm because I knew I wasn't going to use those 2 lenses, and anything else in the backpack that I knew I wasn't going to use. One thing that I did take out was my panoramic rotator because I thought, well, I'm only going to take single images of the sunset. I'm not going to worry about panoramas today. How wrong was I? This was a really bad move for me. But I went out, took some great shots of sunset, and as the sun was just above the horizon, I looked and you're like, oh, I really want to take a panorama. My car was only about 150 meters away. I could see it. I'll just shoot handheld. I'll get it right, I'm sure. And this is how I set up my camera. I just had my tripod, the bald head, I put the camera in portrait mode, off I went. And I tried to get the camera as level as possible. But as you know, and as I stated, a bald head is really not good for photographing panoramas. You've got so many axes that you have got to get level. I thought I'd done a very good job because I'd looked at the leveling screen on the back, I'd gone from the left to the right, in the center, and it looks pretty good. So I took a set of images from left to right. And as I'm taking the photos, and I'm noticing that the exposure was changing. And also my artificial horizon on my Nikon Z2 was just moving very slowly from a bit tilted, and in the center it was straight, and then it was tilted again. And I think like, oh, it really wasn't straight. After that, went back to the middle, set up my camera again. And the big problem that I looked at was that I'd left my camera in aperture priority. You're thinking like, silly you. Yep, silly me. So I fixed that. I set the camera in manual mode and I said, okay, well, I'm going to try to level a little bit more. What I hadn't realized when I was leveling the camera is that on my artist tripod, I've got a self-leveling head and I hadn't locked it properly. So I started taking photos like this from left to right, and I noticed again that my horizon wasn't equal. It was bent on either side. And I'm thinking like, no problem at all. In post-processing, I'm going to fix that. Because isn't that what we say? It doesn't matter if our photos aren't perfect. If the horizon isn't good, post-processing, we can level out the horizon. No sweat at all. And you're going to see today that when you're photographing panoramas, you want to keep your horizon as level as possible because there is no magic bullet once you get into post-processing. You can try to fix the horizon, but if it's too far out, you're going to have problems stitching your images. And that is exactly what I had on that day. And I'll show you now the 2 panoramas I took, and you'll see the mistakes that I made and how I tried to fix these mistakes in post-processing. Here are the 2 panoramas that I photographed on that afternoon. The first one on the top there, it looks pretty good. From this point of view, you're thinking like, it looks fairly straight. Well, it looks straight, but it isn't. If you look carefully, you can see that the exposure varies. It's very even on the left, but there's issues on the right. And the second one down the bottom, this is the one that I photographed in manual mode. The exposure is the same all across the frame. But take a close look at the horizon. It is just all over the place. And I then stitched this image past this, and I'll show you why. This is the second panorama, 13 images across this, and look on the right here, you can see that it didn't stitch properly at all. This is a zoomed in look at it. Starts from the left here. You can see the horizon hasn't stitched properly. Between the two yachts, the horizon hasn't stitched properly, and right where the yacht on the right is, there's a very big gap. There's 3 steps, and I tried stitching this 3 times, tried to align it manually 3 times, and it just wouldn't stitch, even though I tried to align these images correctly in post-processing. So don't rely on post-processing. Get it right when you're photographing panorama, which is what I should have done. And what I should have done was just walk quickly back to the car, grab my panoramic rotator, came back and set up. I would have only lost about 5 minutes, which was nothing compared to all the hassles that I had processing these images. Let's take a look at the first panorama. There are 12 images in this panorama. You can see this is why I wanted such a wide view. I rarely shoot such a wide view. I like shooting a 16:9 panorama. This is way further than it, but I wanted the island. There was 3 yachts there. The yacht in the center, I really wanted there because there was nothing in the middle. So I lined up the yacht so that it was in the middle, and it would just give me a reference point. I wanted those beautiful clouds. It looked magical. And these are the 12 images. You can see I had a fairly good overlap, and I was very happy with it. Here, you can't really see too much that my exposure is wrong. Now I'm going to show you how much I had to straighten these images out to make the horizon level. Because if you're caught in this same situation, get your horizon level before you try to stitch. No matter what stitching program you use, I use PT GUI Pro, and even PT GUI Pro had a hard time with this because the horizon was just all over the place. So I fixed it in post-processing. This is the first image here. You can see the horizon is tilted to the left, and on the right you can see how much I had to reframe it. Here is a very crucial piece of advice. When you're going to do this, make sure that you've locked your cropping. They're 6x4 images. I locked it at 6x4. And once I had set the cropping, I didn't touch the amount of crop, because if you move the cropping tool in or out a bit, you're going to affect the size of your images, and your panorama isn't going to stitch properly. And all I did was just make sure that the horizon was level on all the images. So this is the first image. This is the second one, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you see on the first image, the horizon was tilted down to the left, and on the right, the horizon was tilted down to the right. Now, all my images are level. I've just lost a little bit, but I'm going to end up with a correctly stitched panorama. Went back into PT GUI and look at it. It's stitched beautifully, but take a very good look at the right here between the two yachts. Can you see my exposure changes? It looks like I've put a grad ND filter in the image. It goes from bright to a darker color. This is why you never shoot a panorama in aperture priority. This is something that I should have done, but I let my guard down. I let complacency into my photography. I was having such a chill out day that my chill out time affected my photography. I thought that, yep, I know better. Well, I should have known better, and that's why I put this title, Panorama Photography. I should have known better. I should have known before I even took this panorama to set my camera in manual mode so that I controlled the shutter speed, I controlled the aperture, I controlled where my focus was. Everything should have been in manual, but it wasn't. Here you can see the shutter speed. From the top left, it starts at half a second. It goes half a second, 1/3, 1/5, 1/5, 1/4. Down on the bottom, 1/3, 1/4, 1/4, 1/6. And here look at jumps, 1/6 to 1/8, then to 1/15. Nearly double the speed. Why? Because the sun was there. And it was so bright that the aperture had to jump, because I was shooting in aperture priority, so my aperture of f11 couldn't move. The only thing that could move was my ISO or my shutter speed. My ISO was at 100, my shutter speed was the only thing that moved, so it went 1/6, 1/8, and then it nearly doubled to 1/15. And this is why it looked like this, that it just got much darker. But after a lot of work in Adobe Lightroom, I was able to fix this. And you might wonder, how did I fix it? Well, like I just stated, it looks like I had a grad ND filter on, and that's exactly what I did in Adobe Lightroom. And I used the gradient filter tool and put it exactly where it got darker, and I just kept playing around with it. This is the result I got. You can barely see it. I couldn't get rid of it 100%, but it's still very acceptable. And unless I told you about this issue, you really wouldn't see it. But understand, this took me over 2 hours of post-processing to get to here. When, if I'd done it right, maybe within 15 minutes, all of this would have been done. This looked very nice, but I wanted another view of this without the island on the left-hand side. So I end up cropping the image. This is real nice. And in reality, when I look back, I thought that a whole view was great, but really my view was too wide. I've got the 3 yachts there. It looks great. So all that hassle I had, I didn't need to go through. If I'd followed my advice, and if I'd followed my first intuition of, I just looked at these yachts and said, yeah, you know, it'll be good like this. And I just ran the camera through just these 3 yachts, and I go like, yeah, that look good. Then I could see all the clouds, and I could see the island on the left, and go like, no, I'll just include everything. Well, I included everything, and I had a lot more issues. I normally state that I don't crop in too far. I'd rather have it zoomed out a bit, and then in post-processing, crop. This is where your horizon being uneven is a bigger factor, because the more you zoom in when you're taking the panorama, the more issues you can have, like if your horizon isn't level. This is why I state I'd rather zoom out a bit. I was zoomed in to 45 millimeters. If I had zoomed out even to 30 mils, I wouldn't have had so much issues. I should have just left it at 24, because that is the minimum focal length on my 24 to 85, and then just cropped in. But I thought, yep, it's on a tripod, everything's going to be cool. I zoomed in too much and I had all these issues. So I broke just about every rule that I tell people not to do. I hope you can see from my mistakes how not to shoot, how sometimes complacency in our photography leads us to all sorts of issues. I was very lucky to get away with it, but the second panorama would have been so much better, but there was too many errors with it. So live and learn. At least I walked away with 1 panorama. Could have been worse. I could have walked away with nothing. This is a very good wake-up call for me, and also for you as well, to see that even when you know all the rules, even when you think that I know how to shoot this hands down, I could photograph a panorama blindfolded. Well, sometimes when complacency steps into your photography, you can end up with really bad issues. So thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you have any comment or feedback, leave it in the comments below. I'll answer your questions. Enjoy your photography. Learn from my mistakes when photographing panoramas, and I'll see you next time.